I can remember the impact radio had on me when I was young, and the, you know, being off at a boarding school out in the country at 14 or so, and having the radio on against the rules late at night, and listening to FM programs kind of scratch you from the distance, rhythm and blues from Philadelphia, or folk out of the Washington, D.C. area, or jazz shows out of New York coming crackling through the ether at night, and the sense of identity and the way it would overcome that sort of adolescent angst that one has, Have you ever found people who came to you and indicated that your work was really helpful to them?
Yeah. And that's another reason that why Ben Humphrey and I feel so strong about the show, because we both went through that same thing in the mid and late 60s. I'm dating myself, but I guess it's it's no secret. A DJ named Peter C. Cavanaugh, he used to be with WTAC, always played progressive stuff and always promoted local, either at least Michigan bands, if not local bands. And Ben and I both remember it's the same thing, putting your transistor radio underneath your pillow when you're supposed to be sleeping or whatever, and listening to a show that he had called, I think was Underground Rock or something, but where he played all this weird, bizarre music, and it literally changed my life, and Ben feels the same thing. And I think that is a lot of what keeps us going, is the fact that you are affecting people, because people come up to you and say, I thought all that existed was this stuff that I was hearing on the radio, and then all of a sudden you've opened up my entire world, and you don't forget that. It makes an impact on people, and we like when people come up to us and say that, that remind us that you've had an impact on me, you've opened my eyes up or my ears up or whatever. And it means a lot, because that's really the main reason we're doing it,
Well, what influenced you when you were young? What did you see that has an impact that maybe shows a little bit now in your work?
Just about anything and everything. I would say I can remember some of my earliest memories as far as visual things, as far as TV went, was watching Ernie Kovacs with my father. My father insisted on watching it. It was probably the only show that he was adamant about watching. Anything else, it was what was the family decided. But we had to watch Ernie Kovacs, and the things that experimental things that he was doing on television, they were phenomenal. He didn't care where the edge was. He didn't care what the masses wanted. He went with what Ernie Kovacs wanted. He experimented. And he experimented a lot with music, too. I mean, he used a lot of classical music, and then there was the Nairobi Trio. Again, it was the use in what I saw and heard. And the impact it made on me was the use of, something visual, something audio, and not just one or the other, combining the two, throwing in some comedy, some slapstick. It had a profound effect on me. And then, of course, all males of that age, of that era, watched the Three Stooges.
Not all of us. Not all of us, but go ahead.
Slapstick stuff, and Laurel and Hardy, and then, into the 60s was Laugh-In, and, the music shows that were on back then. But it was all, it was Leave It to Beaver, it was, all that corny stuff.
The culture, the environment. Ernie Kovacs, I can remember looking at. I still remember some of the sounds and the gags. You've got some of that footage, don't you? Could you share some of that with us?
Sure. This is stuff from Rhino Video re-released. It was a documentary that was done in 1971, and it shows a lot of classic Ernie Kovacs.
All right. Well, let's take a piece right now and look at this little segment from the early days. What would you guess the time? 56, 58, something like that?
This show, I think, spanned his entire television career. I think was like maybe from 51 to 61 or something like that.
Anyway,
about 10 years.
Ernie Kovacs. Let's look at a piece of it.
I'm angry. Somebody slipped a brown martini in on me here. Perhaps it's that sassy bartender using mascara again. to business. I have received here a short communication from a student who says, we have been studying history. We are studying the stories of Mr. Americus Vespucci and Mr. Christopher Columbus and how they discovered the world was round. Would you please explain how they did discover it was round? Actually, it's not round at all. People are dropping off all the time. That is tasty, isn't it?
You know, it's amazing how fresh that looks today.
It stands up well because it, yeah, because nobody is, it's still pretty fertile ground, and it's, I guess it's something that we're just starting to do with Take No Prisoners. I mean, the music on the show is the primary purpose of the show, and it always will be. But we, of course, Ben Hamper being, you know, a humorous writer, and my sense of humor is exactly the same as his, and Steve Hester's is. That's what's great about it, because you've got these three people that look at things a little bit off-center, but the humor on the show is starting to get noticed. Ben's writing more, and I would like, at least eventually, to branch out and to do other things besides Take No Prisoners, and maybe possibly do a show that you know, incorporates the same kind of experimentation that Kovacs used. And Ben and I and Steve have been talking about that. It's hard, as you know, with on public access with an all-volunteer crew, to find enough hours in the day to do all the projects that you want. And people look at an hour of Take No Prisoners or a half hour of your show or whatever, and they don't really realize the hours and the work and the preparation that goes into that. You know, there's a lot of time spent in a little editing room, you know, late at night, you know, piecing everything together, and then you watch
equipment that doesn't work that well. Yeah,
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, you don't have state-of-the-art equipment. You don't have, you know, everything available to you. But you know, we've been lucky that, you know, we want to get the best results that we can. We don't usually settle for second best. And even though the show may have an air of being slightly out of control, we're very serious about being out of control. We're very serious about the fun that we have, and we try to technically be as professional as possible, and it tends to show. And we've been improving, and again, that goes back to you know, the knowledge and the expertise of the people that we've been lucky enough to get involved with the show, because it's, you know, it's an amazing thing when you can get people to volunteer for something nowadays. It doesn't happen very often, and do a good job.